Hi friends, welcome to episode 2 of the VAMP Clip show. I'm So Say We All's executive director, Justin Hudnall.
And I'm So Say We All's program director, Jennifer Corley.
We know this is an especially scary week of the quarantine, and so self-care is more important than ever. What self-care looks like for us is literally skinning our childhood stuffed animals with a buck knife and wearing their skin so that we are literally inside our safe space at all times. In putting this episode of the VAMP Clip show together, we want to acknowledge this profound sense of loneliness that we're all going through right now, together, ironically enough. Now, of course, artists are lonely all the time, whether they are actually alone or amidst the madding crowd, to quote Thomas Hardy, whom I masturbate to on the regular, and am required to mention because I went to NYU. This form of loneliness, though, is completely unlike anything we've experienced before. We're not allowed to hug our friends and family. We're not allowed to kiss our postman on the mouth. And worst of all, some of us are actually facing the possibility of having to have sex with our spouses again.
So congratulations to Ying Ying and Li Li, who finally did it out of boredom after being in the zoo for 10 years. Mazel tov.
Crazy kids.
Right now we're experiencing communal loneliness, and it's pushing the concept of digital connectivity to its breaking point. But sometimes being alone can be a good thing, even necessary if you just need to sit with yourself. Other times, being alone can be terrifying. So to honor loneliness and all that it brings, we decided to have it as the theme for this whole episode.
Before we begin tonight's show, though, we wanted to offer you just a little bit of good news. We promise by the time this quarantine is over to have all of our past performances, that's all 11 years worth of our archives, edited and available via our YouTube channel, the link to which should be appearing somewhere right down here magically across my titties as I speak.
And a lot of those videos are going to appear on the VAMP Clip show, but we just want to let you know that that's really expensive.
We want you to prioritize supporting the first-line defenders of our civilization, the healthcare workers right now who have been reduced to using sanitary napkins as face masks and rubber gloves instead of actual PPE. But after you've done that, and after you've spent the money needed to build a guillotine that we're going to use in the coming revolution, please consider supporting So Say We All right now by going to the link below, either to become a member or make a one-time donation. We have been losing a lot of money from not being able to do live programming anymore, as well as education contracts and all sorts of other fun things that we really depended on. So if you do that, what we're going to do for you, and we swear to God it's going to be fun, is give you a shout-out on coming shows and our social media network, celebrating you to the ether and letting everyone know that you are a very, very good person.
So let's get this show started with a fan favorite story from our very own beloved editor, Jonathan Hammond. This story comes from a 2015 February LGBTQ showcase, Love Confection, recorded at Martini's Above 4th in Hillcrest.
So say we all!
Each of the 12 boxes that fill up the screen represent a portal for hope, an opportunity for companionship, an escape from 30 years of solitude, the possibility for love, for connection, or a blowjob in the park. At the same time, each of those 12 boxes represent insanity, instability, flakiness, and the possibility of being catfished. But I can't help myself. It's right there between Google settings and group play. The irony of the latter is not lost to me. Some people's cell phone addiction is Facebook, some is Candy Crush. My mother's is sending me cryptic text messages while rebelling against all things grammatical. Mine is Grindr. If by chance someone in this room is unfamiliar with Grindr or its specifics, I doubt that's possible. But if you are, then let me explain. It's a GPS-based app that tells you where the nearest gay is. How many miles away, or if in close enough proximity, how many feet away the person with said app is from you. Does it sound creepy? Well, that's because it is. I choose, however, to ignore that part. Do you think the junkie cares if his smack is bad? It doesn't matter. He, like me, is addicted. Who, you may ask, will you find on Grindr? You have people who want to date. You have people who say they want to date, but really just want a blowjob in the park. You have people who say they want to date, but are really just freaky perverts. You have the headless torso and or body pic, usually semi-nude. You have the headless torso and or body pic, usually semi-nude, who is not looking for hookups. He is not here for hookups. How much more clear can he be about that? There's only one thing he is here for, and that is friendship. Also, he is a hungry power bottom. But come on, people, he is here for friends, so let's keep it classy. This guy wants to play soccer. The preppy, classically handsome boy that doesn't want sex, but would it be okay if he comes over later and gives me an enema? This guy is being somber. He is duly reflective, considering he is at the Holocaust Museum. The conversations often explode with wit. This guy is hot. I say hi. He says hi back. He's staying at a hotel near my house. I'm horned up. He says, wanna come over? Of course I do. Look at you, Speedo model much? But I don't hook up, I say. We don't have to do anything, man. We can just chill. Watch Netflix. Yeah, right. I strongly consider this. At least the pretense isn't sleazy. But then I think, what would the body count have been if Jeffrey Dahmer had Grindr? So I say next time, and then I eat a cupcake, because it just tastes better than anonymous sex anyway. This chatting and never meeting is systematic, partly because I love the flattery. I wish I were bigger than that, but it's true. I don't hook up because I tell myself I have strong, Midwestern, puritanical values and a finely tuned moral compass. Sex is only for love. But that would be the lie of the century. My powers of slut have known great strengths. But those days came from pre-apps, pre-websites. It's just meeting people when they are two-dimensional that keeps me chaste. I end my phone app romance at the level of chat because of that singular enemy, fear. Fear keeps me moral. Not the fear of being mangled by a stranger, but the fear of humiliation. We all know stories of someone showing up at the front door only to be sent away, even having been insulted. Now, in fairness, showing up 10 years older than the picture you're displaying is false advertising. The one time I did go over to a man's house, there were many differences between the photo and the real man. Mainly in the photo, he had teeth. True. I'm not a sucker for any one specific body type in the least, but I am a sucker for honesty. Unless, of course, I'm the one telling the lie. Speedo Jock sees the green dot in the corner, indicating I am online, even though I said I was going to bed an hour ago. He may or may not call me out on this. They're all different. They're all different, but it's all the same. Grindr is not a secret weapon in my war against loneliness. It is a double agent perpetuating fear. It's digital crack in my hand. It's the day before Halloween. My friend Melissa was relocating to Japan in a matter of days, and needing every minute of FaceTime, I decided to stay for a second candy corn flavored cream cocktail. We had just seen Evil Dead the musical, where when a character has an appendage axed off, the actors spray the audience with fake blood, all while singing and dancing and making gutter-level puns. After wiping the pink water from my face and discarding the provided poncho meant to protect my clothes from the stage blood, we walked to the dimly lit hipsterish bar across the street. After her second drink, she excused herself to use the restroom. I pulled out my phone and opened trusty Grindr. I had a message. Dusty wanted to know how my evening was going. Dusty was a scruffy, baby-faced recent transplant from the East Coast with giant, beautiful blue eyes. We had made vague plans to meet up for coffee soon, and every virtual conversation was innocuous. Not once had the discussion of sex come up. There was nothing revealing nor salacious about any picture Dusty texted me, in which she was usually wearing a button-down plaid or an Oxford shirt displaying an often timid, conservative smile. The preppiness of his dress, juxtaposed with his tattoos, was catnip. He seemed like a nice boy, and he certainly dressed like a nice boy. Dusty was what I was looking for. And then Dusty surprised me. Why don't you come up after you finish with the drinks? What? I responded. I don't want to meet you this way, and I didn't think you wanted to meet me this way. Well, bummer. He followed. I kind of really want you to come up tonight. I wasn't sure how to respond. But you seem like such a nice boy. I finally replied, wondering when I had turned into an old Jewish woman. I am a nice boy, he responded, but I still need dick. He made a very compelling argument. I kept dropping, I wish I could, and I want to, but he persisted. I let him persist. The truth is, I was tired of my fear controlling me. The truth is, I was tired of being alone. The truth is that I had a touch of whiskey. The truth is, I wanted to give Dusty some dick. I decided this would be a defining moment for me. I'll be there in 15. It takes longer than 15. My bladder has reached maximum capacity due to the drinks. It was a confusing drive and a confusing parking lot. I really have to go. I don't know how much longer I can hold it. I don't have time to concern myself with details like checking myself in the mirror, noticing I was covered from head to toe in fake blood. Neither Melissa nor Tree Stump the bartender said anything. You'd think this would be a really obvious thing to say. I must have been clumsy when taking off my poncho as my arms were covered in blood. My face was covered in blood. My Mickey Mouse t-shirt was covered in blood, and I had no idea. I ran up and down the sidewalk looking for the designated number, frantically panting like a madman. With an extra layer of intensity added from the whiskey, I pound on the door. He opens. I see the beautiful blue eyes, the classic button-up Oxford. He does look like a very nice boy. I'm covered in blood. I have to use your bathroom. He is very, very frightened. It is my nightmare scenario. I show up to meet a boy, and he has nothing but terror in his eyes when he sees me. Once everything is explained, we find the situation hilarious. And Dusty and I actually hit it off, like really hit it off. I'm over to his house 5 more times that week alone. I am so grateful for Grindr today. I joke. I'm not joking. He doesn't log on for a month. I know this because I check his profile. Creepy, I know. But he doesn't log on and I'm relieved. This is a good sign. Of course, I am still logging on. Grindr has indeed proven to be the secret weapon in the fight against loneliness, though I am no longer in need of its services, so why? Easy. I am addicted. When Dusty does log on a month later, it is a strange impasse. We both see each other logged on, and we are both hurt. Why are you logged on, he asks. Easy, I respond. I have pen pals. Why are you logged on? We have our first fight. He starts logging on every day. I delete him. He says this is sketchy. He is right. But I don't want to see him on there. I don't want to be hurt. I'm not so happy for Grindr today, I say to him. I'm not joking. I delete my account for a few weeks for his sake, but it's too late. The damage is done. I open a new one. I see him logged on all the time. We see each other less and less in person until the only time I see his beautiful blue calming eyes is when he's accompanied by 11 other men in boxes descending in proximity to me. The instrument to end the loneliness now only serves to infect the wound. I should never go on. It only hurts to see him, but I can't help it. I am addicted.
Our next clip comes from Jesse O'Sullivan, whose story Digging Up debuted in July 2018. There's literally nothing I could say about Jesse's story that wouldn't give something away, as much as I'd love to do a witty intro. So I'm not, and I'm just going to say, here's our special pretty boy, Jesse O'Sullivan. God, I hate that he's so pretty.
So say we all!
I grew up in San Diego in the suburbs, but when I was 19 years old, I moved into my mother-in-law's house in Pennsylvania, where my 2 infant children, my then wife, Laurel, her mother, and her teenage sisters all lived in a house with 3 bedrooms. Laurel was cheating on me, Laurel's mom was encouraging it, and they were both getting smashed at the Wicked Googly several nights a week. Her sisters liked to call each other bitch and slut every few minutes and enjoyed breaking down each other's doors and to take clothing from each other. I was also chalking Laurel down from suicide or self-harm once a week or so. The basement was a fetid mess of molding clothes, furniture, and cat shit. Every morning, Laurel's mom looked into her giant box of pills and decided whether to take her medically necessary thyroid medication or whether to spice things up with Vicodin, Xanax, or a new antidepressant instead. My all-consuming project was trying to fix all these problems that were far beyond my comprehension. To top it all off, the giant-ass TV in the living room was constantly playing Jersey Shore. Things were fabulous. I worked for a tree service. Chainsawing, lifting logs, and tossing branches into the grinder was a good way to get into my body and take a break from the insanity of being at home. The problem was their equipment was old and always breaking down. On one occasion, I was going to be out of work for a couple weeks. Laurel's grandmother, who we called Bubby, heard I was going to be out of work, talked to her friend, and called me up one Thursday to let me know that I would have work the next morning. Her friend Rondon would pick me up at 7, and he'd pay me $10 an hour, which is what I'd be making at the tree service anyway. I thought I had heard before that Rondon worked at the cemetery. I was kind of curious, kind of apprehensive, and mostly exhausted, so I stopped thinking about it. The next morning, I got ready and went outside. In not too long, I saw an enormous lifted F-250 with a cap on the back rolling down the street. It stopped in front of the door, and I hopped in. A couple words about Rondon. First, his name is Rondon. Not Ronald, not Donald, but Rondon. He was about 50 years old, and he lived out in the woods near Bubby. Rondon was a real yinzer from Pittsburgh with a thick accent. One time, Rondon's girlfriend left him, and he got suicidal. Police were called, and he ended up in an armed standoff that lasted for 4 hours. I got in the truck, and Rondon asked me, "You know where's I work?" "No." Up there at a cemetery. You know what an exhumation is? Isn't that where you dig somebody up? Yep. There's a 6-month-old baby whose mom just died, and now we've got to dig it up because she wants to be buried with it. I started to get that giddy feeling that I usually got before doing something really stupid. This was going to get a little weird. Weird enough that I would probably be distracted enough not to worry about Laurel and her family so much. Weird enough that I was going to have some shiny new emotions to process. Weird enough that when I got back home, I would have a story to tell, and I might get some positive attention for once. Shit, even Laurel's mom was going to listen to this story. She loved horror movies, goth bands, and the occult. She might even be jealous. And plus, they might give this some sort of cosmic significance, but I knew that it was just an object that we were going to dig up. An object worthy of respect because alive people are wired to care about their dead, but intrinsically just an object. Sure, I was going to feel some emotions about it. I have the same wiring as everybody else. But it wasn't going to get to me the way it might get to some people. Ah, say you armchair psychologists out there. You were just intellectualizing your problems. You weren't letting yourself experience your true feelings. Hell yes! I was intellectualizing my problems. Intellectualizing problems was how I got through life. I couldn't feel it when Laurel told me that she was going to go pour bleach on her vagina. I couldn't feel it when Laurel said that I wasn't aggressive enough in bed. I couldn't feel it when Laurel was incredibly hostile to me every time she spent the day with her mom. I couldn't feel the gnawing sensation that my family wasn't going to escape this intact. I'd go crazy. So I boxed up my feelings and clung to the belief that somehow, someday, I was going to find the solution to all of our problems and everything would be okay. All I had to do was find the rational way to get there. Same thing with a dead baby. It's easy to intellectualize your feelings about dead babies. I had 2 alive babies. Alive babies who were being taken care of by my binge-drinking, marriage-wrecking, drug-taking, manipulative mother-in-law. If I could intellectualize that problem, I could intellectualize pulling a dead baby out of the ground and putting it back in again. However, knowing a dead baby is just an object and wanting to see a dead baby are 2 different things, and that made me anxious. Were we going to see the baby, or was it going to be fully contained in a coffin or something? Seeing a dead baby might be more shiny new emotions than I really wanted. I wanted to get a little weird, not to have nightmares. I didn't actually ask Rondon what we were going to see because moving from San Diego to Pennsylvania had taught me that if I let on how much of their blue-collar knowledge I didn't have, I was going to catch some shit for it. We arrived at the cemetery and pulled up to a small barn. Inside was a backhoe, lawn mowing equipment, and various other tools. Rondon loaded up the backhoe, gave me a couple shovels, and we headed out towards the grave. We got to the gravesite and I read the headstone. This baby died in 1956? Yep. Keep it cool. Don't let him know you're a sheltered kid from the suburbs. Okay, so most of what I need from you is just to spot me because I can't see what I'm working with from up here. Okay. So just let me know if we hit something. Okay. I stood there with a shovel while he adjusted the backhoe over some dirty sheets of plywood he used to protect the grass and put down the feet. He scraped the first bit of dirt off the top of the ground. He took a long stroke, starting by the headstone, pulling evenly a few inches deep to the other end of the grave. He piled the dirt in a trailer attached to a lawn tractor. The backhoe took another bite out of the ground, then another. I stood there watching. I thought about the baby, I thought about home, but I mostly just appreciated the moment. The backhoe was too loud for conversation, so for me it was quiet. No one was yelling. I didn't have any complicated emotional problems to fix. I hardly even had to work. Just a peaceful moment alone in my head. Just me and my thoughts on a peaceful day of grave digging. Eventually it was time to dump the trailer, so he took it down to the edge of the woods, and when he came back and started digging again. We got a little deeper and I started paying attention, but I still wasn't sure what I was looking for. Presumably not a skeleton? A coffin? If the backhoe hits the coffin, won't it break? My grandfather's funeral was 6 months before, and they put his coffin inside a big concrete thing in the ground. I thought that thing was called a vault, but I wasn't sure. But this baby was buried in 1956. Did they use vaults in 1956? Several trailer loads later, we still hadn't hit anything. Then I saw something that looked like a rock. "Stop," I yelled, and Rondon came down to take a look at it. "There it is." He got back in the backhoe and started digging. He was careful, but he scraped it a bit. Enough for me to realize that it was a cement vault, not a coffin, and not a skeleton. He dug out around the vault, which was only about 4 feet long. Eventually, I had to get down into the hole to scoop the dirt off the sides of the vault. So I was scraping a metal shovel against this baby's last and final resting place, trying to make it the least possible amount of clanging. At some point, digging around the vault required me to step onto the vault. I gave a silent apology for it. When I needed to move to a different side, Rondon put down a ladder next to me to get out. I noticed that without the ladder, I might be stuck. Eventually, Rondon and I hooked chains around the edges of the vault, which Rondon attached to the backhoe, and we started to pull it out. There was a little bit of a as it came free, and Rondon placed it gently on the trailer for the lawn tractor. To my surprise, he drove it to the barn. We cleaned up, Rondon put plywood over the open grave, then we stood outside the barn. "Thanks for your help today," he said. "You just gonna leave it in the barn?" "Yeah, the burial isn't until Monday, so we'll sit in the barn until then." That got to me. Most of the day I had successfully placed inside my rationalized box. It was just digging up a coffin. It was just a trippy experience. But something about leaving a 50 years dead baby in a barn for the weekend didn't sit right. And something about not necessarily being there when the baby was reburied didn't sit right either. "I might need some help on Monday with the burial. You want to do that?" asked Rondon. "I don't know whether I have work on Monday or not, so we'll see," I said. I was feeling more than a little unsettled when Rondon dropped me off at home. Luckily, I got called off of work for Monday, so I was able to be there and put the baby back in the ground. I waited near the barn while the burial ceremony finished. Then I came over to help put down the tent and lower both vaults into the grave. First we lowered the mother, then the baby on top of her. You know how the saying is 6 feet underground? That baby could not have been more than 3 feet from ground level, and I could see in Rondon's face that he fucked up. And then I saw him decide that it was good enough. We filled the grave, mounted the dirt a foot over the grave so it would be flush when it settled, and then I went home.
Give it up for VAMP first timer Jesse O'Sullivan!
Next up, we have an extraordinarily touching piece from Kirsten Deck. It was her first story with us, but not her last. Her piece called Pie and Punishment from the April 2017 VAMP, Putting the Fun in Funeral. Sit back and enjoy.
So say we all!
48 hours before my big brother killed himself in the garage of our childhood home in Carmel, I was serving really delicious apple pie to my best friends in San Diego. This was a coup de grace pie, that rare Thanksgiving dessert that manages to match the glory of the unlucky bird that preceded it. The apples were tangy, the spices perfect, and the lattice, golden brown and glistening, would have been right at home on Martha Stewart's windowsill. This pie looked better than anything I had ever made. And though I'd spent years fattening up these very people with bourbon chocolate cupcakes and hazelnut biscotti and pear torts, according to them, this pie also tasted better than anything I'd ever made. This level of praise would make any baker swell with pride. I can only hope that the baker of this particular pie felt his ears burning wherever he was, probably gearing up for his Black Friday shift in the Southeast San Diego Costco bakery, where I'd bought the pie for $9.99. I hadn't intended to take credit for the Costco pie, really. It was an honest mistake that could happen to anyone who is a liar. Here's how it works. First, you mumble, "Thank you," for a job well done by someone else. Then you do that again, and before you know it, you're explaining the finer points of crimping pie crust and ideal cinnamon to nutmeg ratio. Then someone mentions something about getting the recipe, and at that point, you'd better hope for an earthquake or a bear attack or some kind of god-awful unthinkable tragedy that forever derails any and all thoughts of apple pie recreation, which is where my brother's suicide comes in. I really dodged a bullet there, didn't I? Yeah, dodged a bullet. It's the kind of usually innocuous figure of speech that becomes temporarily verboten after a suicide. Also, I'd rather die, kill me now. Even hang in there, a benign phrase most commonly associated with a kitten poster tacked to an orthodontist ceiling, was cause for a sputtering apology. Hang in there, oh God, what did I just say? In the days after Kent's death, as if the word hang might be enough to trigger a full-fledged breakdown. For the most part, people said the right thing, just by saying something. The landline would ring. Mom would take it to the back of the house to cry and talk privately. Then she'd report who said what, reminding my sister and me that one of Carmel's small-town virtues was that people could be counted on to pick up the phone, drop by with a casserole or a Starbucks, or make a point of telling you they'd always remember your brother's radiant smile. With every visitor and every call, the ghosts of our family's past floated into our newly haunted house, and we welcomed them. Then Terry Chaplin called. Here's what I know about Terry Chaplin. Number one, about 25 years ago, Terry Chaplin wore a toga, angel wings, and an unsettling amount of glitter gel makeup to sing Johnny Angel in a karaoke contest to benefit local youth sports, changing the words to Ronnie Angel in honor of her no doubt mortified husband, Ronald, who would not be her husband much longer. For years, my family watched a VHS of this performance on special occasions. Christmases, birthdays, Tuesdays. Number two, Terry Chaplin's misfit son, Russell, was in Kent's class. My brother and I once ran into Russell at a Black Crowes concert where he shared his wheat with us. It was one of the only times Kent and I ever got high together. Only now that he's gone do I realize it was probably one of the greatest nights of my life. Number three. One week after my 36-year-old brother took his own life, and a part of all of ours, Terry Chaplin called my mother and said, "You know, they come home to kill themselves to punish their parents." In a soap opera, this comment gets met with a swift slap across the face and an incredulous at-home audience. On the phone, in real life, it was almost too bizarre to cause offense. Compared to the heartfelt sentiments we were hearing from our mailman, grade school teachers, and our congressman, they come home to kill themselves to punish their parents was certainly an original way of reaching out. Mom relayed this message to us in a somewhat bemused, get a load of this crazy dummy kind of way. If Terry Chaplin had been someone we respected, someone we hadn't seen flub the remarkably simple lyrics to Johnny Angel in a low-budget Halloween costume, we would have been hurt. We would have been devastated. Because the only thing worse than the idea that Kent hadn't given any thought to his family in choosing this ending was the truly horrifying prospect that he had. And worse yet, that we were less an obstruction to the act than a motivation. Still, even an idiot doesn't get to go through life thinking that's an okay thing to say out loud. Rehearsing the screed I would level at Terry Chaplin if I ever saw her again was the rare bright spot in an otherwise dismal week. Very Inigo Montoya. Hello, my name is Kirsten Deck. You offended my family. Prepare to be on the receiving end of a scathing denunciation of your lack of common decency, as well as the asinine premise you shared with my mother. The morning of the service, we steeled ourselves as best we could with friends, Xanax, and each other, and we headed to the church. I heard my exhausted mom say, more to herself than any of us, "Let's get this over with." After that, my memory of the service is spotty. I know my dress was too big. I know a shepherd in the church's life-size nativity scene wore a San Francisco Giants cap. I know that every time I looked up during my eulogy, I made eye contact with the family dentist, a dead ringer for Dan Aykroyd. I know I've never been so proud of my younger sister as when she stood up in front of the whole town and delivered a clear-eyed, composed remembrance of our brother. I know that one of Kent's oldest friends told me I looked like shit, which was true, if not really necessary to share. And I know that I was furious. Ever since the call announcing a world without my brother in it, I'd been seething with a white-hot anger that bubbled up like lava at pretty much everything. People writing about Kent on Facebook, people not writing about Kent on Facebook. The morning sky refusing to turn permanently black and dump rain forever. Animals, babies, inanimate objects, Keith Richards, because how is that guy alive and my brother isn't? I was furious with my poor, sad parents and Kent's wife for not being able to foresee this or undo it. I was furious at Carmel for being so oppressively small. I was furious that I was swimming in a stupid dress and that I cared about it. Mostly, I was furious with Kent. He'd left without saying goodbye, ruined the holidays, and broken my parents' hearts. He'd robbed my daughters of an uncle. He'd forced me to choose between NPR and total silence in the car so I wouldn't be caught off guard by a song that made me think of them, which they all did. And he'd exposed our family for what we are, for what we all are. An imperfect, vulnerable collection of near strangers who think a lifetime of shared history is all the proof we'd ever need to back up a statement like, Kent would never do that. I was furious that he hadn't given me one last opportunity to try to convince him that life is absolutely worth living, that there is a place for him. And that now and then, we all feel helpless and hopeless and lost. And wished we were different people who traveled different roads. One last chance to tell him that I needed him and that I loved him. But as funerals go, the guest of honor wasn't at this party and would never hear another angry word from me or anyone else. It's generally considered poor form to take out all-consuming rage on people you love when they're grieving someone they love. So in terms of punching bags, my family was out. And everywhere I turned, all I saw was kind faces, people asking how they could help and what they could do. And this was no good. Someone had to pay. And then I thought, maybe no one does. Perhaps this would be the beginning of healing. I'd count to 10, do breathing exercises, channel my anger into positive energy. I'd learn to focus on good memories of Kent, playing Weezer on his guitar late at night, twirling me on an otherwise empty Cancun dance floor. Maybe I'd take up knitting again, or learn how to meditate. I'd embrace myself, my family, and Kent for our flaws and our limitations. And I would forgive. Then Terry Chaplin showed up. So knitting could wait. So Terry Chaplin was hard to miss, not only because her look was equal parts Hocus Pocus Bette Midler and live-action Dr. Seuss character, but because she charged right into me, totally oblivious to the buffer zone a family enjoys immediately after memorial service ends. I hugged Grandpa, hugged Uncle John, and then Terry Chaplin stood before me, like an antelope presenting itself to a wild dog. I was maniacally grinning as she asked if I remembered her. I did. Terry Chaplin! Yes, I know you. You're the woman who called my mother and told her that Kent came home to kill himself in order to punish her and my dad. That's what you said. What a really terrific thing to say to my mother. Poor, dumb, stunned Terry Chaplin. She blinked a lot and started to explain herself. I think it's hard to say for sure because I was busy yelling, "That's what you said, Terry! That's what you said!" Quickly, my husband led me away, probably aware that he'd be held partly responsible if his bereaved wife threw a punch in a church. Alone in the bathroom a moment later, I rehashed what I just shouted and realized I hadn't shouted much. It was shocking how quickly I'd run out of things to yell at Terry Chaplin. A direct recitation of her faux pas? Some mild sarcasm? Is that all there is? It was not exactly the epic takedown I'd envisioned. But later that afternoon, I heard my grandma's supposed eyewitness account of this episode. To her colorful recollection, I called Terry a fucking bitch. This was a big deal to my grandma, whose response to seeing the Book of Mormon was to launch a campaign against profanity. Anyway, unless I had a blackout, real possibility considering the pharmacy's worth of other people's drugs coursing through my system that afternoon, this didn't happen. Though it's a lot more exciting and a hell of a lot more satisfying to pretend it did. So when I overheard Grandma proudly telling her version of events, claiming a victory I craved but definitely didn't deserve, I let it slide. What good would it do to correct her? She clearly preferred her rendition. I did too. And really, what's the harm in a wishful embellishment here and there? Where's the lasting damage in a little white lie that makes you look and feel like the person you'd like to be, or the person you'd like others to think you are? Even if it's just for a little while, before you come clean and say, hey, this is me. I love you. I really need to tell you something about that Thanksgiving pie. Thanks.
VAMP first-timer Kirsten Deck.
We'd like to take a moment to thank two businesses for making the incredibly smart decision to sponsor So Say We All through these dark times. First up, are you like me and you need to get something done, but you can't get out of bed because of overwhelming depression? Or are you not like me, functional, but you still need to get some things done and contract them out to other people? Either way, head over to Easy and give yourself the gift of time.
We'd also like to thank the genius decision by San Diego realtor Sabine Steck to support So Say We All. Are you in the need to buy or lose a home? Well, then go over to Congina.com.
It's Congina.
Go over to Congina.com and dial them at the number below and let them know that their support for local storytelling arts is what brought them your business.
All right, our next stop on our tour of emotional isolation stories lands us smack dab at the feet of Air Force veteran and Border Patrol agent Derrick Woodford with his story called Easy Lay. So coming to you from the incoming collaboration with La Jolla Playhouse's Without Walls Festival in 2017, here's Derrick.
So say we all.
All right, our next performer, Derrick Woodford, is an equal opportunity triple threat depending on what state he's in. He's gay, he's black, and he's a veteran, which means whatever's going on in the news on any given day, everyone wants to hear his opinion. He's not going to get into all that, but he is going to tell you an amazing story, so please welcome my friend Derrick Woodford.
Good evening. It had only been a couple months, but I was getting settled into life on Allison Air Force Base. I shared a room with Matt, an Italian New York native. He cracked open a couple beers daily after work and went through a case on the weekends. Barely 21, drinking wasn't new to him. He had previously been busted for underage drinking on base. What else did you do on base in the middle of Alaska while serving in the military? Sure, some of the merry guys hunted and fished, but what do we do with 500 pounds of moose meat after hunting and you lived in a dorm room? Matt despised authority and the military, but I thought maybe it was more so people who told him he couldn't drink or drank too much. He still felt the sting from the work details he performed to atone for the vicious crime of underage drinking on base. We both worked in the communications squadron. It was my first duty station. Matt had been on base over a year now. I secretly depended on him to introduce me to people and invite me to small dormitory parties I pretended to be indifferent about. Even in the military, meeting people could be challenging. I remember my first time navigating the dining hall alone, tray in hand. I spotted a table of 3 other black men like myself. There wasn't many of us on base, and the tallest of the group gave me a nod. It was probably obvious to everyone that I was a F&G, a fucking new guy, but I walked over and pulled up a chair. "What's up, yo?" the tall one said. Barely audible, I muttered, "What's up?" I eyed the one with a large, friendly smile and buck teeth. The Bible near his food tray is what caught my attention. "Where they got you working?" he asked. "I'm in the communications squadron." "Me and Jones," the third guy stated. "We're in supply." He had smooth skin and reminded me of an island native. He eyed me up and down. "What dorm they got you in?" he continued. I swallowed my first bite of meatloaf, 2206. "So Woodford," the one with the Bible started, "where you from?" I didn't correct him, telling him my name was Woodford, but most said it that way, somehow pronouncing the D like an L. We never exchanged names out loud, but most circles, even in private settings, referred to each other by last names. I assumed they didn't deem introductions necessary. We wore our names on our uniforms. Bible guide name tag said Jackson. "I'm from Cleveland." The tall one spoke up again. "You grew up in Cleveland?" "Well, technically Warrensville," I said. "It's a suburb of Cleveland." They all looked at one another and presented wide grins. I clearly wasn't in on the joke. "That makes more sense," he said. I never ate with him again, and somehow I think we were all okay with that. My biggest worry while serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell was being found out. The implied implication that I wasn't black enough was a whole new set of worries that would taunt me, but at least that didn't threaten my livelihood. One evening, I returned to my room to find Matt having his usual after-dinner Budweiser with Mike, one of our suite mates from next door. We all shared a bathroom between our 2 rooms, which made getting ready for work in the morning often challenging. Luckily, Mike worked nights at the dining hall, leaving only 3 of us battling for the bathroom in the early wee hours, the third being Mike's roommate. I settled on my bed as they talked and watched syndicated reruns of Seinfeld. An hour or so had gone by when there was a knock at the door. "It's open!" Matt yelled with his New York Italian accent. Jenny, a pleasantly stout girl with a bob cut entered. Jenny lived down the hall. With so few females, most had rooms to themselves. A petite redhead with shoulder-length hair whom I had never seen before followed in behind her. Red was somewhat of an understatement, especially in contrast to her white porcelain skin. "Hey guys, this is Mandy," Jenny explained. "She just arrived a couple hours ago." So once you learn to your new duty station, you will be assigned a sponsor to help you with your transition. Some of the responsibilities included making contact with the F&G, or gal in this case, and helping them with room assignments and showing them around. Jenny appeared to be Manny's sponsor. "So this is Mike, Matt, and Derrick," Jenny pointed to each of us. Mandy grinned nervously, revealing perfectly chemically whitened teeth. "Hey, y'all." She was definitely from the South. Her gaze swept the room, then landed on me. Her smile grew bigger. I returned a friendly, forced smile. In my peripheral vision, I could see Matt and Mike taking her in and Jenny being disgusted by all. Mandy was new prey and also quite pretty. So Matt once told me a 5 was elevated to an 8 here. Even ugly bitches are living a life. His words. I guess you say I guess you could say Mandy was naturally an 8, so I didn't know what that made her on Matt's Alaska scale. I suspected out of his league. Matt asked, "Where do you work?" He too was grinning ear to ear. "Dining services," she said. "I'm a cook." She hadn't stopped looking at me as she answered Matt's question. Mike chimed in, "That's where I work." I plainly saw the dirty thoughts cooking in his eyes. "I'm just showing her around," Jenny interrupted. Mandy occasionally glanced away to finally acknowledge the other people in the room, but her eyes always returned to me. I attempted to conceal my awkwardness with the question. Where you from?" I asked. "Kentucky." She giggled. "I know, I have an accent." "No shit," Matt added. By now, the others had noticed this game of eye tag I was being subjected to. Well, okay, let's go, Jenny said. I still have to get her settled and fed. Later, guys. A mere second after the door closed, Mike shouted, "You dog!" His exclamation was directed at me. "What?" I said. "She was eye-fucking you," he said. "She walked right into the room and started eye-fucking you. She's hot, dude. That's an easy lay." I played dumb. "What are you talking about?" "Dude, he's right," Matt said. "She wants you." The fact that they were aware of this posed two potential problems for me. First, I was serving in the military under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which led me to logically conclude that I needed to bone Mandy. If I didn't, I ran the risk of being discovered. She made it quite clear that she was attracted to me. If I passed on her, people would be suspicious. So my second potential problem, I did not want to bone Mandy. I was already quite familiar and very far along with the male anatomy and quite happy with my decision. No, scratch that. It was not a fucking decision. Suddenly, I was reminded of a conversation I had with my mom when I came out to her. "Have you slept with a real woman?" "Yes, of course." A lie. Straight people weren't expected to experiment with the same sex and make a lifelong decision based on the experience, so why would a gay person with the opposite sex? Except, had I said no, I would have expected to do the same thing. So 3 days after meeting Mandy, she was already cooking me breakfast. Not that we hung out, but she worked in the dining hall. She cooked me omelets nearly daily. Sure, we all received omelets made to order, but I suspected mine were made with a little extra love, and they were always served with a smile. There was not what I would call a courtship between couples in Allison. We were far from town and often dealt with inclement weather. For the most part, Aaron drank. That was usually at the enlisted club or dormitories. So with each mini dorm party, the space between Mandy and I closed, so to speak. With not many places to hide in the dorm room, she often cornered me with idle conversation. Soon that progressed to dancing together awkwardly among our peers to whatever rap song she just could not sit still for. I remained neutral and conflicted, but she persisted. After one particular late Saturday night, we ended up alone in her room on her bed, facing each other, lamenting on how drunk we were. I remained aware that several people saw us live together. I planted a kiss on her thin pink lips. It revealed that Mandy was a closet smoker. That didn't bother me. For some reason, the taste of cigarettes countered her undeniable femininity, thus making the kiss more bearable for me. Thoughts of the Marlboro Man crossed my mind. I placed my hand on her hip, kissing her again, but this time deeper. Secretly, I wish he was Casey, who was married but showed up to the dorm party that night. I guess he was about 6'3", muscular build, corn-fed, as they say. He too had a southern drawl that tickled my ears. "You have to pretend this here is a blunt," he said. "Now open your mouth." He'd taken a long drag from the cigar while I sat there dumbfounded, with my mouth agape. He brought his lips a half inch from mine, then proceeded to blow a puff of cigar smoke into my mouth. This happened in the middle of the party with everyone watching, seemingly completely normal to everyone in the room but me. "But this is supposed to be weed smoke," he said. But at that moment, I did feel high on my own adrenaline. What the fuck was he doing? Teasing me? But it was his lips I imagined as I continued to kiss Mandy. I ran my hand up her oversized Biggie Smalls t-shirts, feeling her small, fleshy breasts and her erect nipples. She moaned. When I felt brave enough, I pulled her shirt up over her head, revealing a black lacy bra. She looked away nervously. I kissed her more. Kissing was safe enough. I didn't want to be there, but I had to be there because any guy at that party would have wanted to take Mandy back to her room. Saying no was not an option. What red-blooded American male says no to pussy? Clearly me, but I had to play the part. I undressed her down to her matching panties. I undressed down to my boxers. My dick hadn't exactly jumped on board with my plan yet. And I was ready to blame the alcohol if things didn't go well. I got between her legs to remove her underwear. She didn't resist. Her expression was unreadable. I looked at it. I hadn't seen one in person before, and here it was right in front of me. There it was, all this complicated tucks and folds, like a gift needing to be unwrapped. Where was Amanda in my life a few years ago before my declaration of dick? Would it have made a difference? Would she have been more desirable then? I still wasn't ready for penetration. I attempted to buy myself time. I closed my eyes and dove into her head first, an unexpectedly brave attempt on my part. My tongue darted around. So for whatever reason, it reminded me of being a child and sucking on a penny. I reverted to my high school sex education classes. The clitoris was located towards the top of the vagina. I think. From what I remember, I think. I noticed I was thinking in very clinical terms. Vagina, clitoris, intercourse. Very professional and respectful, like a doctor. I thought maybe I hit the spot because she began moaning louder. Her hips began to arch. I wondered if she was faking it. Then I imagined her telling all the females how good I was at cunnilingus. Did I really want her telling all the females on base how good I was at cunnilingus? I pictured them lining up in my dorm room demanding it. Maybe it was her moaning my need to please, but I finally rose to the occasion. An alter ego took over. I can do this! This is mine. Sexuality is fluid. I pulled her hips close to mine. Our genitals a touch. I made my move. She quickly placed her hand on my chest. No, stop, she said. What? I want you to stop, she said. You need to put on a condom. Well, do you have any, I asked. No. I sighed deeply. You sure you want me to stop? She rolled over to her side. Yes, I'm sure. I collapsed beside her and feigned defeat. We lay in silence for a few moments. She turned towards me. The last time I had unprotected sex, it ended with me having an abortion. I had no response. I simply took her in my arms. She drifted off to sleep. Mandy and I would have a couple more similar nights, one actually ending in intercourse. It wasn't a life-changing experience. It didn't make my life in the military any less difficult. There were no high fives because I told no one. There was, however, a tinge of guilt. I was using Mandy to fit in, look the part. And part of me did want to have sex with Mandy to satisfy the ridiculous notion of whether or not I needed to try it first, like comparison shopping. An idea put in my head by my mother and maybe even society. After all, the military was deeming my lifestyle not even appropriate to talk about. Don't tell. Don't ask, don't tell. It's that attitude that keeps men and women in the closet even today, sacrificing our own happiness simply to fit in. Maybe even struggling in relationships we have no business being in. To some degree, I had no choice but to play the game to make it under don't ask, don't tell. But stringing Mandy along was my own personal regression, and that was unfair to her. I believe she sensed my disconnect, because after we did the deed, we drifted apart. We spent less and less time together. Honestly, it would be much later in life that I see my own fault in how I treated Mandy. Then I saw myself sort of a silent victim of the military system and the culture of that time. And that's a possibility. But the truth is, I wasn't allowed to be myself, and if I were, I probably wasn't brave enough to be myself just yet. So until then, I merely survived under the shadows of don't ask, don't tell, compromising my convictions, not for actual acceptance, but for the sole purpose of blending in. Thank you.
Derrick Woodford! Welcome back, and our next story is from Jennifer.
Yeah, this was my second story with So Say We All, and I told this at the 2013 September VAMP showcase, Trouble in Paradise. When I first started writing the story, it was just kind of a funny and embarrassing story to tell, and then as I kept writing, it got deeper and a little bit darker, which often happens with VAMP. And the events in this story happened about 4 years prior, at a time when I was feeling kind of down and feeling like life was fleeting and passing me by. Still feel like that, but at least I got a good story out of it. So I hope you enjoy my piece titled Self-Portrait with Dealy Boppers.
So say we all!
He was young, but it didn't seem like a big deal because he was incredibly smart and very mature. We began chatting as we both worked the same temp job one day, removing staples from papers for Citibank's shredders. He was wise, funny. He referenced the hoodoo gurus and read Milton during his lunch hour. Who was I to consider myself above somebody when we were, after all, working the exact same temp job? And who cares when you become Facebook friends? That's just a natural progression, right? You don't want to be rude and turn a person down for that request. Especially when you're new to LA, as I was, trying to meet people. Trying to make some connections. Any connections. The thing was, I never looked through Craig's Facebook profile. Maybe I didn't want to see any obvious clues to his age. I've always had younger friends and boyfriends, but I'm finally at the age where that doesn't seem acceptable anymore. So we'd converse back and forth in private messages, and somehow we were hanging out, virtually, and trading suggestions on music and websites, things you do when you're first making a friend and really getting into it, superficially. I was having fun. And what kept me rationalizing my communications with this much younger guy was the knowledge that he had a girlfriend. He's not chasing after me, and I'm not flirting with him. We're just friends. So it's acceptable and definitely not skeevy for me to be associating with him. Our ages didn't come up. I was glad for it. Even though nothing would probably ever happen between us, there was a little spark, which is nice. It's still just nice to feel attractive, to feel cool, to feel that an awesome young guy sees value in you. Eventually, he invited me to go to a concert with him, his girlfriend, and some other friends. Okay, a group. Seems pretty safe. I wouldn't feel like a predator. We would take a 2-hour drive from LA to Del Mar to see the Flaming Lips. A Flaming Lips show would soothe all my anxieties. Forget being the lonely new kid in an unforgiving city in a terrible studio apartment. Everything floats away in the uplifting experience that is a Flaming Lips concert. Pure joy as they wail about the wonders of the universe and as they rain confetti and balloons all over your face in an orgasmic musical money shot. I have t-shirts, every album, and autographed posters. A framed photo of me clinging a little too tightly to lead singer Wayne Coyne after having stood in line for 4 hours to meet him. This sort of fandom, understanding, translates into how all good fans should dress for a Lips show. We prepare for a cosmic love fest freakout. We're new people in a new world. You try to leave old you behind. When Craig comes to pick me up, I'm expecting him to be outfitted in some sort of alien Easter bunny getup. But as I get into the car, knocking my purple glittered Dealy Boppers on the roof, batting my oversized rainbow-tinted false eyelashes, I notice that he's wearing the argyle and corduroy ensemble of a Connecticut vacationer. He laughs at me and only says, "Wow, nice." We make our first stop to pick up his friend Bobby. With fuzzy hair flopping in the breeze of the open car windows, Bobby spouts semi-radical ideas about politics, sex, and drugs. It's the rehashed stuff that circulates with every generation of people in their 20s and justifies kinky activities. Bobby and Craig together, with their vintage style and exuberant idealism, remind me of past days with my friends. They're an engaging, intelligent duo. But as we drive, I'm trying to figure out, how old is this duo? I don't want to just ask because I don't want the question asked of me in return. At the time, I'm 35. I won't lie if I'm asked. I'm hoping they're 24, 25 if I'm lucky. It comes down to social acceptability. I'm feeling so out of place. It's different working a job with somebody, chatting with them online, and then just being in a car with them on a road trip. I'm painfully aware of the differences in our wardrobes. We make a second stop to pick up Craig's girlfriend. I was looking forward to this. What would Kayla look like? Would she be a Zooey Deschanel look-alike, heavy bangs and big black-rimmed glasses? A bohemian Mary-Kate Olsen? Or is it Ashley Olsen? Or is it the other Olsen? Whichever one dresses sloppy but cool but doesn't hunch over. It takes me a few seconds as she gives Craig a kiss, says hello to Bobby, and introduces herself to me to process it. The images I'm seeing all fall into place. A big house, 2 cars in the driveway, one of them a minivan. Hair pulled back with a barrette, and when she smiles at me, she has braces that twinkle in the sun. This bitch is still in high school. Bobby drives. I'm in the passenger seat, and Craig and Kayla ride in the back, telling us about the upcoming prom. They talk about cummerbunds and after parties, and I sit, politely nodding and smiling, saying things like, "Oh, that'll be cool." I know that sounds like fun. And I check my purse, making sure I brought my pill case filled with my nightly Zantac and Osteo-Biflex. Craig and Kayla begin whispering sweet nothings to each other's ears, and Bobby breaks the front seat silence, maybe because he can sense my discomfort. Look, I know you're older than us. I mean, Craig had told me you were kind of older, but he thinks you're really cool, and he thought I would think so too. And I totally do. So I just want you to know it's not a big deal, okay? I don't care at all. It didn't occur to me until then that I might have been set up on a double date. He goes on to reassure me, telling me that even though Kayla's 17, she is about to graduate. And that Craig is 21, and that he's 22, and that none of them consider people's ages a big deal. We're kind of a lot older than most people our age anyway, you know what I mean? And with this, he smiles at me, as if I should now consider myself comforted. I figure he's probably dying to know, so I go ahead and spill it. I'm 35. He nods. I don't know why anybody gives a shit about it anyway. It's just a number. And then he goes on to talk about Republicans and climate change and Walt Whitman and graphic novels and quantum physics. And Craig and Kayla whisper in the back, and I go on pouting a little. On Facebook, I commanded Craig's attention. I could craft perfect responses. Out here, in this fucking old Toyota Tercel, I was a 35-year-old getting ignored, but getting a strange come-on/pity speech from a young hippie. I'm told a little while later that we will be making a brief detour on our way to the show. Bobby just needs to make a quick stop at his mother's house, which turns out to be a 40-minute detour to the heart of Temecula. And when we get there, I say, should I just wait here? Craig tells me I might want to come in because we'll probably be there for a few minutes. Not long, he says, but Bobby just needs to make an appearance. It's his grandma's birthday party. She'd be mad if he didn't come. We walk up to the door and Bobby rings the bell. A dog barks inside and the sound of laughter rings through the house. Suddenly Kayla says to me, "I meant to tell you earlier, I love your fake lashes. They're so cute." I had forgotten about them. I had even forgotten about my purple glitter dealy boppers aimlessly floating above my head. As the sound of footsteps draws nearer, I swipe the headband off and stuff the dealy boppers into my purse, leaving the growing gloom cloud over my head to rain a slight glitter drizzle as we enter the house. While Bobby, Craig, and Kayla may be totally progressive about age differences, a group of family members looking at a 35-year-old in rainbow lashes hanging out with their kids are most certainly not. With each, "And who is this?" I withdraw more. To avoid the family's questions and stares, I try to keep myself occupied by playing with or even just looking at their dog the whole time. Finally, we make it to the venue. We meet up with more of their friends, the last 3 remaining people of our group, and they will be graduating with Kayla in a couple months. All in all, it really is a good group of people. They're funny. And honestly, I'm a bit threatened because I feel like they're much more intelligent and aware about a lot of issues than I am. If my friends from back home had come with me, we would have spent time bitching about our relationships, our jobs, our families, and when we got too frustrated with those topics, we might have gone on to talk about the political issues that directly affect us, before eventually melting away in puddles of emotional tears during Flaming Lips songs, in between our grumblings about the sound being overmodulated. These guys, they spend their time talking about their debate society, the financial situation in Europe, world religions, culling Twitter and the blogosphere, and they kiss their boyfriends and hold their girlfriends' hands. They're nerds, hipsters, active musicians. They remind me of high school when I was in it, only elevated. Suddenly I hate myself for not being more studious and proactive my entire life. I hate my elementary and high school education for not being better. I hate scientists and inventors for not giving me the same tools and technology, the same high-level brain functioning that these kids have. Because obviously, the fact that internet usage wasn't widespread until the mid-90s is what has made younger generations snazzier and me a piece of shit. They know so much. I only know books, music. Shit, they probably have me beat with those too. Okay, I only have them beat with life experience. I can only take comfort in knowing that when they reach my age, they will be as bitter as I am towards a newer generation. The concert starts, and I can't even pay attention and relax and be happy. I really want to. My idol, Wayne Coyne, is up there, and he's beautiful. And Bobby and Craig are making sparkling, hilarious jokes about their love for him, too. I don't know how to deal with the emotion storm that's going on behind my heavy lashes. There's a woman around my age who is being really belligerent, really drunk, had pushed her way in front of us, and is carelessly shoving Kayla around just because she can. There's always one of those. And because Kayla is a small, shy teenager, and because Craig is such a modern guy that he doesn't believe in fighting his girlfriend's battles for her, she's getting knocked around like a weeble wobble. I try to politely intervene. You know, could you move over a little bit? You're pushing into my friend here. And that doesn't work. So a mild altercation escalates. You know, hey, we were here first. Why don't you back off a little? Why don't you shut up, bitch? The usual concert banter. And my group looks on. Her flat-ironed hair swings across tastefully exposed cleavage as her French manicured nails curl around a beer cup, and she yells at me even more. Nice lashes! What are you, 15? At that moment, I realize I still have my dealy boppers in my purse. I want so badly to put them on, yet I don't. Instead, as the woman muscles her way forward, I stand there and cry, and pretend it's because of the song I'm hearing. I even lean over to Bobby and say, "This is my favorite song of theirs. It tears me up." My lashes are starting to come unglued at the corners from my tears. I'm jealous. I'm sad. When it's over and we head back to the car, Craig, Bobby, and Kayla are running and jumping on a concert high. We get in the car, and I laugh at Craig's joke that I don't hear. I pull my Dealy Boppers out from my purse and put them on and stick my head out the window. They flail wildly in the wind. I'm a comet, leaving a trail of glitter dust in the night sky. Children are so good at playing pretend.
Jennifer Corley, everybody.
Our last clip of the evening required us to reach way back into that archive we keep saying we're editing. May 2010's VAMP Storytelling Showcase, Growing Pains. This is our ride or die queen who's been with us from the beginning, Lizz Huerta, and her story, The Letter, or The Note. Either way, we did not title this video correctly, which you're going to see shortly. So here's Lizz. Really?
This is The Note. Dear Eddie, I thought junior high school would be different. The summer before 7th grade, I fantasized about my new life. I knew there'd be lay masses there from elementary school, but I didn't really have any friends there anyway, so I was excited to move on. I thought I'd be cool, like the girls in the Babysitters Club books I was obsessed with. I thought people would pass me notes and would want to sit with me at lunch. There would be no recess, so I wouldn't have to sit in the library all by myself every day reading to forget I had no friends. I was tentatively excited that maybe in junior high school, boys would begin to recognize me and talk to me. But I was wrong. The first day of school, I knew I was doomed. I dressed in fuchsia leggings and hiking boots and ran to all my classes. The cool crowd still ignored me. I wasn't the smartest kid in school anymore. Kids were louder, meaner, and the teachers didn't regulate. I had the unfortunate luck of getting my first period for 2 months straight at the beginning of the school year, and had to be sent home several times because I'd bleed through whatever I was wearing. My hormones were on overdrive, and my nerves got to me, and I began breaking out. I was 12. But then, Eddie, I saw you. I liked you in a distant and somehow stalkery way. I latched on to the idea of you so I could forget that still almost no one spoke to me or was interested in what I had to say. At that age, kids think dorkiness is contagious. But you, we had PE together. You were tall, skinny with bad posture, and big chapped lips. You reminded me of Archie from the comics I used to read, and you seemed just as out of place and awkward as I did, even though you did run with the cool kids who hung out at the taco shop after school. You had a skateboard. I began noticing where you were at breaks and which route you took between classes. I never spoke to you. I was too scared, but I thought of you. I daydreamed you'd like me back and one day come up to me and ask me to sit with you at break and share the cinnamon roll you always ordered. I thought you'd never notice me. One day I opened my locker between classes and a folded note fell out. I immediately felt cold, imagining someone had stuck a note in the wrong locker. But when I opened it, it was addressed to me. The writing was square and read, "Dear Lizz, I don't know if you know who I am, but we have PE together. My name is Eddie, and I think you're beautiful. I watch you doing jumping jacks, and you have the cutest butt. Meet me after school behind the gym. I want to talk to you, maybe even kiss you. I hope you come. Love, Eddie." I was over the moon. You knew who I was. I don't even know how I made it through the rest of the day. I was so excited, I was shaking. I was going to talk to you and you were going to kiss me. Oh, Eddie, you were my first big excitement over a boy. Over the years, I'd revisit that excitement over and over and sometimes still get it. Now it's ringed with wariness, that if something is too good to be true, it probably is. I am better at pretending I don't care, but back then I was a kid, a lonely girl with red glasses who just wanted someone to see her and make her feel less alone. After school, I went to the bathroom and made sure I had no food in my teeth. I took off my glasses and cleaned them. I finger brushed my hair and practiced saying, hi. I had made a list of things for us to talk about in case we didn't know what to say to each other. I walked nervously toward the gym, counting my steps to stop from shaking. The day was beautiful, and most of the kids had gone home already. I could hardly breathe. When I turned the corner, I couldn't even look up. Then I heard the laughing. You were nowhere, but your friends were there. They saw me and were doubled up in laughter, and I immediately knew. The note wasn't from you. It was from your friends. They'd noticed me staring at you and thought it would be funny to pretend you'd written me a note. I wanted to die. I turned and walked away as fast as I could so they wouldn't see my tears, and when I got home, I cried harder than I thought was possible. I didn't want to go back to school the next day, but had to. Your friends laughed whenever they saw me in the hallways, but I ignored them. There was nothing else I could do. I tried not to look at you again because every time I did, the horror of what happened passed through me and I wanted to throw up. A few years ago, my sister ran into you at a bar. She said you asked about me and told her to tell me the prank your friends played on me still bothered you, and you were sorry you'd never apologized, that it was one of your big regrets. I was strangely happy to hear it. I was able to reach into the part of me that is still 12 years old and insecure that no one will ever like her and offer her a small comfort. It was 17 years too late, but I'm glad it came. XOXO, Lizz.
Lizz Huerta.
Well, friends, that concludes the second episode of the VAMP Clip Show on the theme of loneliness. We miss you all so much, and thank you for those of you who have been being engaged and present in the chat, chatting it up, recreating our community that we've been missing so much digitally. We've been responding, and we've been taking notes on who we're going to give inappropriate hugs to first, as soon as we're allowed to again legally.
Oh yeah, cugs all around.
Tell them what a cug is, Jennifer.
A cug is something that us ladies do, wherein we press just a little too closely, with our down heres. And you, as the receiver of the cug, get a nice feeling of warmth and goodness that you weren't expecting, where you weren't expecting it. So get ready for that.
As we mentioned at the top of the show, we've been busy as little beavers putting our entire performance archive online to make sure that anyone who has ever graced our stage has their pieces viewable until the sun burns out. But that's costing us wheelbarrows full of money at a time when we're losing money already. So now is a wonderful time, if you haven't already, to go to the link below, become a member, or make a one-time donation to help us weather the storm.
Now, to quote the somehow still relevant Queen of England, we will meet again.
And until then, if you want to get a hold of us or suggest a video for the show, go to info@sosayweallonline.com. We'd love to hear from you. And until then, we'll see you on the webs.